Hey guys, we're going to look at using intercepts to help us graph a linear equation. So a quick reminder what a linear equation is. It's going to be any equation where the graph is a line. So anything that has an x to the first power. We could graph using an xy table. And then also, a solution is going to be anything, any ordered pair that fits our equation that's on the line. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you hear the word solution. It means it's an xy coordinate point that satisfies our equation, or it's an xy coordinate point that's on our line. Okay, so here is the standard form of a line. So we have ax plus by equaling c. A and B cannot be 0, otherwise we don't have an equation anymore that creates a line. So know that standard form is ax plus by equals c, and a, b, and c are all numbers. Okay, so we're going to learn how to use this standard form to make our life easier to graph. Then that way we don't have to make an xy table. So before we do that, we're going to talk about what an x and y intercept are. We talked about these before, but an x-intercept is where our graph crosses the x-axis, and it's specifically the x-coordinate of that point. The y-intercept is where our graph crosses the y-axis, and we look at the y-coordinate of the point. So we're going to look at algebraically how to find our x and y intercepts. And if you think about an intercept on a graph, if it crosses our x-axis, then that means our y value is going to be 0. So we're going to plug in 0. I can kind of demonstrate that quickly. So here, if we have a graph, if this is my x-intercept, you think about, well, what's the y value? It would be 0 because I don't go up or down at all from that x-axis. So that's why we plug in 0 for y. Okay. Similarly, for a y-intercept could potentially look like this. And then when you look at your x value of a y-intercept, you don't move left or right at all. So that x value would be 0, which is why we plug 0 in. So it's really big to remember that when we go to find our x-intercept, we're going to plug 0 in for y, and when we go to find our y-intercept, we're going to plug 0 in for x. That will help us tremendously. Okay, so here we're going to actually do an example. So we're going to find the x and y intercepts of this 3x plus 4y equaling 24. So we're going to start with the x-intercept. We plug 0 in for y, because that's definition of x-intercept. Well, 4 times 0 is 0, so that leaves us with 3x equals 24. We would divide both sides by 3 and get 8, x equals 8. So that coordinate point would be 8, 0. Our y-intercept is going to be very similar, only we're going to plug in 0 for x. 3 times 0 is 0, so we have 4y equals 24. Divide by 4, and we get our y-intercept to be 0, 6. So in our next example, we're going to do the same exact thing, except for now we're going to have to take it a step further, and we're going to have to graph. So we have the equation 5x minus 6y equaling 30. It says let's graph using our intercepts. So first of all, let's find our intercepts. X-intercept, we plug 0 in for y, so we get 5x equals 30. When we divide by 5, we get x equals 6, so our coordinate point is 6, 0. Y-intercept, we're plugging in 0 for x. Notice here, though, that cancels off to be 0, but we're going to be left with a negative 6y, which means our y-intercept is negative 5. So now I have 2 coordinate points, and it only takes 2 points to draw a line. So we're going to graph our equation, or graph our line, using these 2 points. So I created our graph. Do the x-intercept first, so I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I go up 0. And then 0, negative 5 means I go 0 left or right, and then down 5 units. And then I connect those dots. So here's our graph using our x and y intercepts. Okay, sometimes you're just going to be given a graph, and you're going to have to find what are the x and y intercepts from the graph. Well, let's do the x-intercept first. Remember, x-intercept crosses that horizontal or that x-axis. So that dot is on -3. So our x-intercept would be x equals -3. I'd like you guys to tell me, what is a y-intercept? And finally, sometimes we're going to be given an equation where the equation's not in standard form. So we're going to want to put that into standard form to help us graph. And a reminder, standard form means that our x and our y are on the left side and our number, our constant, is by itself on the right. So we're going to take x equals -4y plus 8, and we're going to put that in standard form. First, we're going to add this 4y to the other side. That gives us x plus 4y equals 8, and that looks like ax plus by equals c. So this is now in standard form. And now we can find our x and y intercepts. Remember, you're plugging 0 in for the opposite variable. So x-intercept, we're plugging 0 in here. We get x equals 8. Our y-intercept, we'd plug 0 in for x. So we'd have 4y equals 8, and that means y equals 2. And then we can graph, and there would be our graph.